What if I told you that the food most people believe is the ultimate muscle builder, the avocado, may not actually be the strongest ally against age-related muscle loss? In fact, there's another food hidden in plain sight that has far greater potential when it comes to protecting your muscles, sharpening your mind, and even fighting off one of the most overlooked conditions of aging, sarcopenia. Sarcopenia, the gradual, silent loss of muscle mass and strength, isn't just about looking weaker. It's directly tied to independence, vitality, and even longevity. Research shows that people who maintain strong, healthy muscle well into their 60s, 70s, and beyond are not only more mobile, they're also more resilient against disease, more cognitively sharp, and even more emotionally stable. Why? Because muscle is not just about movement, it's an active organ system constantly communicating with the brain through hormones, myokines, and metabolic signals. When you lose muscle, you're not just losing strength, you're weakening the biochemical foundation that keeps your entire body and mind resilient. And here's the surprise. One humble nut has been shown to activate muscle protein synthesis, support hormone balance, and reduce the inflammation that accelerates muscle decline. Unlike avocado, which is primarily a healthy fat source, this nut provides a unique combination of plant-based protein, essential amino acids, and bioactive compounds that directly combat sarcopenia at the cellular level. So today we're going to break down the science of why this nut is so powerful, what's actually happening in your body when you eat it, and how you can use it strategically to preserve and even rebuild muscle as you age. We'll connect the dots between neuroscience, metabolism, and daily behavior, so you'll walk away not just knowing what to eat, but how and when to use it for maximum effect. By the end of this talk, you'll have a practical protocol you can apply immediately, one that has the potential to reshape how you age, how you feel, and how you show up in the world. When most people think of muscle, they think of strength, mobility, or physical appearance. But science now shows that muscle is far more than just tissue that moves your bones. It's an endocrine organ, meaning it secretes powerful molecules called myokines that directly influence your brain, immune system, and even your emotional well-being. In fact, researchers have started calling skeletal muscle the secret endocrine system of the body. Here's what happens. Every time your muscles contract, whether you're lifting a weight, climbing stairs, or even performing simple daily movements, they release these signaling molecules into the bloodstream. Myokines travel throughout the body, crossing into the brain, where they reduce inflammation, improve synaptic plasticity, and support the growth of new neurons. That means muscle is literally sending chemical messages to keep your brain young. One striking study from the Karolinska Institute found that muscle-derived factors can stimulate the hippocampus, the memory center of the brain, to grow new neurons. This is groundbreaking because it means preserving muscle isn't just about avoiding falls or frailty. It's about protecting your ability to think clearly, remember, and stay emotionally resilient as you age. Now think about what happens with sarcopenia. When muscle begins to decline, so do these protective myokines. The result is not just weaker arms or legs, but a weakening of the chemical shield that protects your brain and body from aging. This is why sarcopenia is now recognized as a driver of cognitive decline, depression, and even increased mortality. Losing muscle is losing your internal pharmacy of protective molecules. Here's the empowering part. We are not powerless in this process. Every meal you eat and every movement you make can either fuel or deplete this endocrine system. Protein-rich foods stimulate muscle repair and growth, ensuring that this powerful biochemical network remains active. And specific foods, like the nut we'll be focusing on today, provide not only the building blocks for muscle tissue, but also compounds that amplify this endocrine function. Let's put this into real-life terms. Imagine your muscles as a highly sophisticated hormone factory. When it's running well, it's producing resilience chemicals daily, keeping your brain sharp, your mood steady, and your metabolism balanced. But when the factory loses workers, which is what happens when muscle shrinks, production slows down and the whole system suffers. So the stakes are much higher than simply avoiding frailty. The stakes are your independence, your vitality, and your cognitive freedom. Maintaining strong muscle means keeping your body's most powerful internal pharmacy open for business. And here's where nutrition comes in. Not all foods are equal when it comes to fueling this muscle-brain connection. While avocado is excellent for healthy fats, It doesn't directly supply the amino acids that muscle requires to grow and secrete these protective myokines. This is where our surprising nut comes into play because it directly stimulates the pathways that allow muscle to act as a thriving endocrine organ. Before we go deeper into the specific nut and its compounds, I want you to pause and reflect. When you think about your health, do you focus only on avoiding disease, or do you think about actively strengthening your system of resilience? Because that's what muscle really is, your resilience organ. And once you understand it this way, the choices you make about food, exercise, and daily habits take on a completely new level of importance. So as we move forward, keep this big picture in mind. Maintaining muscle is not just an aesthetic or fitness goal, it's a neurological and psychological investment. And the right nutrition can literally fuel your brain and body with protective molecules that medicine alone cannot replicate. Now that we've established muscle as a powerful neuroendocrine organ, let's talk about the food that can fuel it in ways avocado simply cannot: pistachios. Why pistachios? At first glance, they look like a simple snack, the kind you might casually eat by the handful. But under that shell lies a biochemical powerhouse specifically designed to fight sarcopenia and keep muscle thriving. Here's what the research shows. Pistachios are one of the richest plant-based sources of complete protein. Unlike avocado, which is mostly fat, pistachios deliver not just calories but the building blocks of muscle, including all 9 essential amino acids. Most importantly, they are particularly high in leucine, the amino acid that flips on the molecular switch for muscle growth. Scientists call this switch the mTOR pathway, and without leucine, it stays dormant. Think of mTOR like the ignition in your car. You can fill the tank with fuel, calories, carbs, and fats. But unless you turn the key, the engine doesn't start. Leucine is that key. And pistachios, unlike avocado, provide enough leucine to keep that engine firing, ensuring that muscle protein synthesis stays active even as you age. One fascinating trial published in Nutrients found that older adults who consumed leucine-rich protein sources had significantly greater muscle mass retention compared to those who ate equal calories, but with lower leucine content. In other words, it's not just about eating more, it's about eating smart, and pistachios are a smart choice. But pistachios go beyond protein. They are packed with polyphenols, carotenoids, and vitamin E, all of which reduce the oxidative stress that accelerates muscle breakdown. Chronic inflammation is one of the main culprits behind sarcopenia. Every time your body fights inflammation, it breaks down protein at a faster rate. Pistachios act like a shield, calming that internal storm so muscle can repair itself instead of being sacrificed. Now compare this with avocado. Avocado is excellent for heart health, full of monounsaturated fats and fiber, but it doesn't provide the amino acid density required to directly trigger muscle growth. It's supportive, but not proactive. Pistachios, on the other hand, actively intervene in the muscle aging process. And the benefits don't stop at muscle. A clinical trial from Loma Linda University found that pistachio consumption improved blood flow and endothelial function, meaning better circulation, which is essential for delivering nutrients and oxygen to muscles during both exercise and recovery. Stronger circulation means faster healing, stronger contractions, and greater endurance. Here's the part that excites me most. Pistachios also support brain function. A UCLA study discovered that eating pistachios increased gamma wave activity in the brain, the same brain wave linked to learning, focus, and memory consolidation. This means you're not only feeding your muscles, you're fueling your brain's performance center at the same time. So let's pause for a second. The simple act of eating a handful of pistachios daily gives you plant-based protein, leucine for muscle synthesis, antioxidants for inflammation, better circulation for delivery, and brain stimulation for focus. That's a profound return on investment for such a small dietary change. Here's a simple tool to apply. Aim for about 1 ounce of pistachios a day, roughly a small handful. If you're active, consider 2 servings, especially post-exercise. That's enough to provide a meaningful dose of leucine and other nutrients without overloading calories. I'd also encourage you to think of pistachios not as a snack, but as a strategic intervention. Every time you choose them over empty calorie foods, you're choosing to protect your muscle, brain, and future independence. If this kind of insight resonates with you, where science meets everyday habits, consider subscribing to this channel. I share evidence-based strategies like this every week, and together we're building a community committed to aging stronger, healthier, and sharper. So now that you know pistachios are the nut in question, in our next section, we'll explore the exact cellular trigger that makes them so unique, leucine and the mTOR pathway. This is where the science gets fascinating, because it's the difference between feeding your body and actually activating growth. When we talk about muscle growth and preservation, one word stands above the rest: leucine. It sets not just another amino acid, it sets the master signal that tells your body it sets time to build. Here's the science. Inside your muscle cells lies a molecular control center known as the mTOR pathway, short for mechanistic target of rapamycin. Think of mTOR as the foreman of a construction site. The workers, your amino acids, might be standing by with tools in hand, but unless the foreman gives the order, no building begins. Leucine is the messenger that walks in, hands the foreman the blueprint and says, "Start building muscle now." Now, here's where things get critical for aging adults. Research shows that as we get older, our muscles develop what's called anabolic resistance. In simple terms, the same amount of protein that built muscle in your 20s doesn't work as effectively in your 60s. Your body needs a stronger signal to activate growth. This is why so many seniors continue eating the same foods but slowly lose muscle year after year. That's where leucine-rich foods like pistachios come in. So they published in the Journal of Nutrition highlighted that leucine is uniquely capable of overcoming anabolic resistance by directly stimulating mTOR activity. When older adults consumed leucine-dense proteins, their muscle protein synthesis rates were significantly higher compared to when they ate equal protein without leucine. So here's the everyday takeaway. It's not just about the amount of protein you eat, but the quality of that protein and whether it contains enough leucine to flip the switch. Pistachios, despite being a plant-based food, contain one of the highest levels of leucine among nuts. This makes them uniquely powerful for maintaining muscle in an aging body. Let's make this more tangible. Imagine two people. One snacks on avocado toast daily. The other adds a handful of pistachios. Both get healthy fats and nutrients, but only one is actually activating the growth switch inside their muscle cells. That activation means the difference between losing half a pound of muscle every year versus holding steady or even gaining strength well into later life. This is also why timing matters. If you spread leucine-rich foods evenly across your meals, you're giving your body repeated on signals throughout the day. Many people eat little protein at breakfast, moderate protein at lunch, and then a big serving at dinner. That pattern only activates muscle growth once a day. But when you have even a modest serving of pistachios mid-morning or post-exercise, you create a second or third activation signal, far more effective for long-term muscle preservation. Here sets a simple framework. Aim for 2-3 grams of leucine per meal. Pistachios can provide roughly 0.7 grams per ounce. Combine them with other protein sources like yogurt, cottage cheese, or lean meats to hit that threshold and maximize mTOR activation. And remember, this isn't just about biceps or leg strength. What's happening in your brain when mTOR is activated is equally fascinating. mTOR plays a key role in synaptic plasticity, the brain's ability to rewire and adapt. That means when you stimulate muscle protein synthesis, you're also reinforcing your brain's learning and memory processes. It's a muscle mind double benefit. So the simple act of eating pistachios or other leucine-rich foods is like pressing a button that says grow stronger, stay sharper, age slower. If you're finding this breakdown helpful, I'd encourage you to join our community by subscribing to this channel. Every week I bring forward these science-backed insights that can genuinely change the way you live and age. And if you know someone who could benefit from this, a parent, a friend, or even yourself, 10 years from now, this is the kind of information that makes a difference. Now that you understand how leucine flips the switch, in the next part we'll explore how pistachios do more than just build muscle. They actually protect your brain, improving blood flow, boosting antioxidant defenses, and even enhancing brainwave activity. We've been talking about muscle as if it's the center of the story. But the real beauty lies in how muscle and the brain are constantly talking to each other. This two-way dialogue is one of the most exciting areas of modern neuroscience. And it's where pistachios shine in a way most foods cannot. Every contraction of your muscle releases signals like myokines that cross the blood-brain barrier and influence mood, focus, and memory. At the same time, the nutrients you consume determine how effectively that system operates. When you eat foods that enhance circulation, fight oxidative stress, and activate protective brainwaves, you strengthen the very foundation of cognition. Pistachios happen to do all three. Let's start with circulation. One of the biggest risks to both muscle and brain is reduced blood flow. Without oxygen and nutrient delivery, both tissues weaken. Pistachios are rich in arginine, an amino acid that converts into nitric oxide, the molecule that relaxes blood vessels and improves circulation. A clinical trial published in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition found that regular pistachio consumption significantly improved endothelial function, meaning smoother blood flow through the arteries. Better blood flow equals better nutrient delivery to muscles and more oxygen to the brain. That's sharper thinking and stronger movement in the same package. Now let's talk about oxidative stress. Think of oxidative stress as the slow rusting of your cells, especially in the brain where oxygen demand is highest. Pistachios are loaded with antioxidants like lutein, zeaxanthin, and vitamin E. These compounds neutralize free radicals before they can damage brain tissue or accelerate sarcopenia. In fact, pistachios contain more antioxidants per gram than many popular fruits and vegetables. So when you eat a handful of pistachios, you're essentially arming both your brain and your muscles with shields against daily wear and tear. But here's the part that makes pistachios unique. Their effect on brainwave activity. A fascinating study from UCLA measured the impact of different nuts on brain function using EEG technology. The researchers found that pistachios uniquely boosted gamma wave activity, brainwaves linked to learning, memory integration, and cognitive processing speed. Gamma waves are often described as the binding rhythm of the brain because they integrate information across different regions, allowing for higher focus and creative problem solving. So pistachios aren't just fuel. They're like a frequency tuner for your brain. Now think about this connection. When your muscles are strong, they send protective signals to your brain. When your brain is well nourished, it maintains the motivation, coordination, and emotional balance you need to keep moving. It's a positive feedback loop, and pistachios strengthen both sides of that loop. Here's a simple tool you can apply. Try eating a small serving of pistachios about 30-60 minutes before doing something mentally demanding, whether that's studying, giving a presentation, or even having an important conversation. Notice how your focus feels sharper and your energy more stable compared to when you snack on processed carbs or sugar. Over time, this habit trains your body to link food choices with mental clarity. I often like to ask, have you ever noticed how your ability to focus drops when you've skipped protein or eaten a heavy carb meal? That's your brain signaling a nutrient mismatch. By supplying both muscle and brain with the right building blocks, pistachios help close that gap. And here's the empowering insight. Muscle health is brain health. By choosing foods that trigger muscle synthesis and enhance brain waves, you're not just preserving your physical independence, you're actively defending your memory, creativity, and emotional balance. If this connection between nutrition, muscle, and brain is opening your eyes, I invite you to subscribe and join our community here. We're building not just knowledge, but a movement towards stronger, sharper, and longer lives. Next, we'll shift into the practical side. When you eat pistachios, matters just as much as eating them at all. Timing can make the difference between storing energy as fat or channeling it into muscle repair and brain resilience. We've explored how pistachios fuel muscle growth, protect the brain, and fight oxidative stress. But here's a critical truth. When you eat matters almost as much as what you eat. Timing can amplify or blunt the effects of nutrition. And with pistachios, the science points to several windows where they can do their best work. So let's start with one of the most important concepts in nutrition science, protein distribution. Most people eat very little protein at breakfast, a modest amount at lunch, and then overload on protein at dinner. That pattern means you're only fully stimulating muscle protein synthesis once a day, usually in the evening. But research shows that spreading protein evenly across meals with at least 20-30 grams per sitting produces far more muscle growth and maintenance, especially in older adults. Here's where pistachios fit in beautifully. Adding just 1 ounce of pistachios to breakfast oatmeal or pairing them with Greek yogurt gives you a leucine boost that flips on the mTOR switch early in the day. That's your first muscle activation signal. Repeat this at lunch and dinner and you've created multiple opportunities for growth instead of leaving muscle dormant for most of the day. Another key window is post-exercise. After resistance training or even a brisk walk, your muscles are like sponges. They're primed to absorb amino acids and begin the repair process. Consuming pistachios within about 30-60 minutes of activity delivers not only leucine for muscle synthesis, but also antioxidants to reduce exercise-induced oxidative stress. That's a double win: faster recovery, stronger gains. But here's a fascinating nuance. Pistachios may also be powerful as a bedtime snack. During sleep, your body enters its longest fasting period. Without amino acids, muscle protein breakdown can exceed synthesis, especially in older adults. Studies on nighttime protein feeding show that consuming leucine-rich foods before bed significantly improves overnight muscle repair. A small serving of pistachios paired with a casein-rich food like cottage cheese or a warm glass of milk creates a slow-release effect that feeds your muscles while you sleep. You wake up stronger, not depleted. Now let's talk about synergy. Pistachios on their own are powerful, but they work even better when combined with other complementary foods. Pairing pistachios with dairy or legumes can raise total leucine content closer to the 2-3 grams needed per meal to maximize muscle synthesis. Adding vitamin C-rich fruits like berries improves absorption of certain antioxidants. Even something as simple as combining pistachios with resistance exercise, your body's natural mTOR activator, multiplies the benefits. Here's a simple daily framework you could apply. Morning, add pistachios to oatmeal or yogurt, first activation signal. Post-workout, a small handful within an hour of movement, repair, and growth window. Evening, a pistachio protein combo before bed, overnight protection. This 3-point rhythm gives your muscles and brain a consistent flow of amino acids and antioxidants at the times they need them most. And here's something many overlook: the psychological power of routine. By deliberately placing pistachios in these anchor points of your day, breakfast, exercise, bedtime, you're not just nourishing your body, you're building a ritual of self-care. Over time, these small, consistent actions compound, creating not just stronger muscle, but a stronger identity, someone who invests in resilience every day. So ask yourself, are you eating reactively or strategically? Because the difference between the two is the difference between slowly losing muscle year after year or actively rebuilding it even as you age. In our next section, we'll close the loop by exploring pistachios as an anti-inflammatory armor, how they protect your body from chronic silent inflammation that accelerates sarcopenia and cognitive decline. This is where nutrition becomes more than fuel. It becomes medicine. We've explored how pistachios fuel muscle growth, activate mTOR, and sharpen the brain. But there's one more piece of the puzzle that explains why this nut is such a powerful ally against aging: its ability to act as anti-inflammatory armor. Chronic inflammation is often called the silent killer. Unlike the acute inflammation you feel when you sprain an ankle or fight a fever, which is protective and short-term, chronic low-grade inflammation simmers below the surface, often without symptoms. Over time, this hidden fire erodes muscle tissue, stiffens blood vessels, and damages neurons in the brain. It's one of the main drivers of sarcopenia, cognitive decline, and frailty. Here's what the research shows. Every time your body is under oxidative stress, it releases inflammatory molecules that accelerate muscle protein breakdown. Instead of building and repairing tissue, your body diverts resources into fighting stress. This is why inflammation is often described as the anti-growth signal. If you want to preserve muscle and mental sharpness, you need to calm that fire. Pistachios are uniquely effective here. They contain polyphenols, plant-based compounds that neutralize inflammatory molecules before they can do damage. They're also rich in carotenoids like lutein and zeaxanthin, which have been shown in clinical trials to reduce oxidative stress markers in the blood. A study in the Journal of Nutritional Biochemistry found that daily pistachio intake lowered key inflammatory biomarkers, including C-reactive protein, a strong predictor of cardiovascular and muscle decline. But there's another layer. Pistachios supply a balance of monounsaturated and polyunsaturated fats that regulate the body's inflammatory response. Unlike processed snacks that trigger spikes in pro-inflammatory cytokines, Pistachios stabilize the immune system, creating an environment where muscle protein synthesis can proceed uninterrupted. It's like giving your muscle building machinery a calm, quiet workspace rather than one filled with constant alarms. And remember, inflammation doesn't just break down muscle. It disrupts brain signaling too. Chronic neuroinflammation has been linked to depression, memory loss, and slower reaction times. By supplying antioxidants and healthy fats, pistachios help protect the brain from this silent damage. That means fewer roadblocks between your neurons and more efficient communication across your brain's networks. Here's a practical way to apply this. Replace one inflammatory snack in your day with pistachios. For example, instead of reaching for chips or pastries in the afternoon, which flood your body with refined oils and sugar, reach for a handful of pistachios. You're not just cutting calories, you're actively tipping the balance toward anti-inflammatory healing. And if you want to go one step further, pair pistachios with other anti-inflammatory foods like blueberries, green tea, or turmeric. These combinations amplify each other, creating what researchers call a synergistic effect, where the total benefit is greater than the sum of the parts. It's worth pausing here to reflect on the bigger picture. Too often people think of nutrition as simply calories in and calories out. But what's happening at the molecular level is much deeper. Every bite you take is either fueling inflammation or fighting it. Over weeks, months, and years, those small decisions determine whether you lose muscle at an accelerated pace or preserve it for decades. So ask yourself what's on your plate right now, an accelerant for the fire or a shield against it? Pistachios are one of those rare foods that act as a shield in multiple directions, protecting muscle, protecting brain, protecting heart. That's why they stand out compared to foods like avocado, which, while healthy, don't provide the same comprehensive defense. In our final section, we'll bring everything together. We'll recap the science, the protocols, and most importantly, the why behind these changes. Because when you connect the dots between food, muscle, brain, and long-term independence, pistachios stop being just a nut, they become a tool for living stronger and sharper for life. We've covered a lot of ground today, but the message is simple. Muscle is more than strength. It's an endocrine organ, a biochemical shield, and a direct line of communication to your brain. And sarcopenia, the slow, silent loss of that muscle, isn't inevitable. It's a process you can slow and even reverse with the right choices. Avocado may be a symbol of health, but when it comes to fighting muscle loss, it doesn't have the specific tools your body needs. Pistachios do. They deliver leucine to flip on the mTOR pathway, antioxidants to put out the fire of inflammation, and compounds that sharpen blood flow and brainwave activity. In short, they provide both the building blocks and the protective armor your body requires to age with strength and clarity. Think back to the frameworks we discussed. Distribute protein evenly across the day so your muscles get multiple activation signals. Use pistachios strategically in the morning after movement and before bed to maximize their impact. Pair them with other whole foods for synergistic benefits. And remember, every serving is not just feeding your body, it's feeding your resilience, your independence, your future. Here's my challenge to you. Try adding just one intentional serving of pistachios into your daily routine this week. Not as a casual snack, but as a conscious choice to invest in your strength and cognition. Notice how your energy feels more stable, how your recovery improves, how your focus sharpens. Over time, those small signals add up to a profound shift. Because the real goal here isn't just avoiding sarcopenia, it's about living fully, staying strong enough to lift your grandchildren, sharp enough to keep learning, and resilient enough to keep showing up as your best self in every stage of life. If today's insight spoke to you, I'd love for you to join this community by liking, commenting, and subscribing. Each week I share evidence-based strategies to help you not just add years to your life, but life to your years. Together we're building a future where aging means strength, clarity, and vitality. So the next time you crack open a pistachio, remember you're not just eating a nut, you're fueling the system that keeps your body and brain thriving.